Do you think the Greek fathers taught a hypostatic filioque?
Well, in order to answer that question, the way I understand it, hypostases. See, Saint Bonaventure distinguishes four ways of talking. He says you can talk about hypostases, you can talk about person, you can talk about nature, and then he provides another way. But what he opens up is when you're talking about the Trinity ad intra, you can talk about hypostases as an undesignated distinct existence or termination of the divine being. So if we say there are three hypostases in God, we know there are three persons in God, but we don't yet know we're not yet stating what their personal properties are. And so in the West, there was a distinction between speaking of hypostases as kind of a generic notion of a person and person proper with a designated property. So you have hypostases or you have father. Now, they're both person, but when you say father, you're adding the property of paternity that then distinguishes him from every other hypostasis, actual or possible. And so when you say hypostatic filioque, I'm not sure what hypostatic means, insofar as the Eastern fathers don't seem to make that conceptual distinction between hypostases and person in the way that the Latin fathers do. So it seems like the Latin theologians of the Middle Ages, it seems like the Latins have an additional distinction that would allow for me to say, as a Latin theologian, yes, it's a hypostatic filioque, because the hypostasis as point of origin of the Spirit, or what terminates in the Spirit, does proceed from the Father solely, uniquely. It only proceeds from the Father. But insofar as the termination of the generation of the Son is prior in termination to the termination of the hypostasis of the Spirit, then you could say the hypostasis proceeds from the Father as Spirit, but when it terminates in and through the Son, then you have the perfect distinction of personhood. You don't have hypostasis originating. Now you actually have the completed act of communication where you have origin and termination. And it's only in termination, the full communication of the divine being, that you then have the personal property, because what you have then is you have a relationship of origin to term, of Father to Spirit. Whereas in origin alone, you don't have the termination yet designated. So you could say there's a hypostatic filiation, but I don't know if the Eastern Fathers would make that distinction between hypostasis and person.